Hello and welcome to the Marketing Mix. This week we are going to be talking about how introverts can get the most from LinkedIn. Now, contrary to popular belief, you do not have to be an extrovert to use LinkedIn or any social media, really. You don't have to be that social butterfly to get results. And I've got today with me Jen Corcoran of My Super Connector, and she's proved this. So she's had great results on LinkedIn for herself and for her clients. And as we talk, you may not think it, but Jen's definitely an introvert. I think I'm on the cusp of introvert and extrovert. But we both have our challenges and we overcome them. So Jen is going to talk us through how introverts can really get their share of voice on LinkedIn. So first of all, I'm just going to ask Jen to introduce herself. Tell us a bit about your business and how you first started using LinkedIn.
Hi, Manal, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on today. So I'm Jen Corcoran. I'm a LinkedIn trainer and consultant, and my main clients are female entrepreneurs like me, fellow introverts, fellow empaths, fellow HSPs, and I love helping them to polish up their profile and to connect with finesse in a way that feels aligned, not that feels icky or gross. So it's all about working with your personality, your energy, and your makeup, your human design. So I first started using LinkedIn when I was back in corporate. I worked in financial services and I was a PA/office manager. And I used it really as an accompaniment to networking. And I still do the same now as a business owner. So, as Manal said, I'm definitely an introvert. I was at a face-to-face event yesterday locally for 2 hours, and I was like drained for the day. And it was nice to see local people. And I came back and I was just like, I love LinkedIn because it doesn't take that much energy for me, and I can do it in my own time from the comfort of my home. So when I first started to use it in corporate, I didn't post on the home feed at all. I just had a really strong profile and I was like, who am I going to connect with? I took a very active approach rather than just waiting for people to come to me and shape my network. I was like, who do I want to connect with? So I connected with a lot of colleagues and suppliers that we helped in the company, and then also my peers, so that we could help each other out. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel again and again. And I reached out to trainers and just anyone that I found interesting and really built my network. And anytime I went to a face to face event, I would try and get the guest list in advance and connect with everyone so that when I walked through that physical door, now it's a Zoom door sometimes, people would recognize me and I'd always be welcomed and, brought over to whatever table. I never had to walk in cold. And that's the worst part for me as an introvert going into any like networking event or conference. It's that initial getting through the door.
Isn't it awful? Isn't it? Do you I'll go into rooms where I don't know anybody and I'll just feel like I want to sort of melt into the wall.
Yeah.
And just because I don't know anybody. And you really, I mean, networking is so important when you own your own business. And it's interesting your technique of being able to know people before you get to that room.
Definitely. And like my face-to-face routine, I would always arrive early. So I would always arrive about 10 minutes before any event, because that's a lot easier than walking into a busy room. Like you've said, it's a lot easier just walking into an empty room. And that way you can connect with the host, who's usually the person I want to see anyway. And they're grateful because someone showed up, because everyone is always thinking, is anyone going to arrive? So you're the first person, you're top of mind. And I always say to myself, any physical event, I'm only going to stay for an hour. I always have that in my head. Only going to stay for an hour, give myself that out. And usually when I get in, I get chatting to them, somebody else joins, then they introduce us and I'm away. So once I start chatting to that first person, whether it's over a cup of coffee or a wine or whatever's going on, I settle into it. Whereas coming in late, oh, that is my worst nightmare. Into rooms with clicks and having to like move into those circles, and you're kind of hovering on the background. I hate that. So it's one of the reasons why I love LinkedIn, because LinkedIn kind of does that warm introduction for you. So if
Yeah.
you can get the people's names in advance and connect to them when you go into the event, somebody will always recognize me now and drag me in. So I
Yeah.
never have that ickiness. Or likewise, if you can't find the names in advance, if you get them after, it's a great way to
Mhm.
continue the conversation
Yeah.
because you've already been to the same event, you've got something in common, and
Yeah.
yeah, it just really enhances any kind of networking, whether it's real life or Zoom.
Cool. Well, I can see people have joined, so please do pop your name or pop a hello in the comments so that we can see who's with us today. And I've got some questions for Jen, but we're here for you today. If there is anything particular that you want to know, pop your questions into the comments and we'll get through as many as you can. But just say hello in the comments at the minute so we know who's watching. And we, like Jen and I, can see each other, and you can see us, but we can't see you.
Yeah.
So my first question, we talked a bit about in-person networking, but how do you feel introverts use LinkedIn differently?
Yeah, I think most of my clients are introverts, and I think most of them want to focus on their profile first because they want their profile to do the talking for them. Whereas a lot of extroverts, the profile is a bit of an afterthought because they're just happy, and chatting and popping up. But profiles want to go deeper and just get that profile to do some of the work and take away some of the icky factor for them. So I think they're more interested in their personal brand and how they show up. And I know I've definitely always been like that ever since I learned about LinkedIn in corporate. I was like, oh, I really want my profile to represent what I do, my job and my
Mhm.
industry. And then again, as a business owner, it was like, I really want my profile to represent how I can help others and be customer centric as opposed to brand centric and just kind of
Mhm.
rattle off things that I do like an employee. So yeah, I think the profile is always the first one with an introvert, before they rush to do any kind of connecting or
Yeah,
posting, any of that.
yeah. And sorry, and I just thought from what you said previously, when you set up your LinkedIn profile, you were really proactive about who you wanted to connect with. But do you think that's a common trait in introverts, or did you make that decision
Yeah,
yourself?
I don't know if it's that common a trait. Like I think you learn as the years go on. I'm a bit of a force unto myself, so I don't do everything the same as other people. But I always think of it's like a face-to-face event, and I'm sure we've all been at a networking event as business owners in real life, and you get people like firing their cards at you,
Yeah.
and you're like, who are you? I don't even know, if I'm interested. And initially, when I joined LinkedIn, it was all a bit like, oh, do I connect? Do I accept to everyone? Do I ignore? And, try to be nice. You're like accepting random people and it's going nowhere. And then it was only over time, I would say, I got a bit more discerning. And I was like, actually, if I really want to get this platform working for me, I need to take action and not just sit back and treat it like an online jobs board where people are going to find me.
Mm.
It is a social network and you are supposed to, network. So I think, yeah, I didn't think like that initially. I was quite passive because, I was an employee and I had my CV and it seemed like the accompaniment, but it's changed massively like
Yeah.
the last, 10 years or so. Now it's a lot more than it used to be and it's the number
Mhm.
one personal branding platform in the world, and it's a lot more than just kind of having a static profile and just sitting there. So yeah, I think for me as an introvert, energy wise, and as someone who's like empathic and sensitive, I've learned like energy wise, I just really have to control my time on LinkedIn and make it work for me.
Mhm.
And not just sit back and allow random people to shape my network. Because otherwise, you've got all these connections, but nobody knows anyone and there's no
Mhm.
real community there. It's just numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think taking control and reaching out is the key, and just be really clear on who is your ideal client and also who interests you. It could be to do with hobbies or a topic or a theme. Like for example, I've looked up the hashtag introverts, and I will look up people, and if they're an interest in looking introvert, I will connect just purely
Mhm.
because we're introverts. And likewise, highly sensitive people. I've looked up the hashtag for that and connected with some great people. So, it's all about connecting with your right people, because then you get a network that works for you. And I think in the past, I probably was quite passive for the first year or two, and my
Yeah.
network was a bit spammy. And then over time, I kind of booted out the spam, disconnected, started afresh.
Cool. Well, we've got a few people on. Louise from Lancashire. Hello, Louise. Deborah from Albuquerque. Hello, Deborah. Welcome. And Nina from Ruislip. So I can see more people are on. Do pop your questions into the comments to pick Jen's brains, but I've got some others to be getting on with because I'm interested. So let's talk about HSPs. You've mentioned HSPs, highly sensitive people or persons. This is another thing that Jen and I have in common. So can you just tell us a bit more about what a HSP is and how they might
Yeah.
use LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm pretty new to like the whole term HSP and the whole HSP thing. And I wish I wasn't. I wish I knew about it years ago. But I learned about it in the last, I would say, 18 months. And I kept hearing people. I was in an American network and people mention it. And I was like, what is it? And when I saw the word sensitive, I thought, that's interesting to me. I've always known I'm a sensitive person. I didn't know if I thought of myself as like highly sensitive. So I looked into it more, and I discovered that 1 in 5 people in the world is a HSP, which kind of blew my mind because I always thought I was a bit of an oddball, like in a 1%. So you can be a HSP whether you're a male or a female, it's not just women. And we just feel things more deeply, really. A lot of creatives are highly sensitive, like musicians, artists, creative brains. A lot of them are sensitive. And I think for us, energetically, we do as empaths feel things. So you just really need to check yourself in on LinkedIn and be connected to the right people, because otherwise it can just be a real drain on you. And I was actually chatting to one of my clients earlier on this morning, and she's a fellow HSP. And I know a lot of HSPs tend to overthink and procrastinate and feel things deeply. Yeah, yeah, I do as well. So it's kind of about managing your energy, and I get that it can be hard because we want to put our best self out there in the world, but sometimes we can overthink and block ourselves, or want everything to be perfect, and nothing's ever going to be perfect. You just have to take that imperfect action. So I especially love helping HSPs because I've kind of learned what works for me and what doesn't, in terms of like getting over yourself. And like one quick kind of tip is, if you are the type of person who blocks yourself, even as a business owner, I know one of my blocks was a little bit of cringe of sharing testimonials. Because you just think, oh, well, I've got so many recommendations. People can read them or they can see them, but then you have the business. No, you have to showcase them.
Yeah.
You've got the cringe or not. So for me, even just simply scheduling things like that, I don't have to second guess. I don't have to overthink. They go out regardless. So I've learned, like with me, I have to do that. And I know a lot of my clients who are sensitive, I'm like, schedule those because they won't go out otherwise. They'll overshare and they'll get kind of on a different path and stuff. So yeah, I think it's all about being aware of your energy and what's going to overwhelm you, and how to support yourself and work with your personality. So for me, it's about a lot of time blocks. So I like to treat my LinkedIn like my email, my Outlook. LinkedIn's not somewhere to spend all day scrolling, because otherwise we'll just fall down the rabbit hole, get triggered, compare yourself to other people, even get more overwhelmed. So just kind of setting it in your calendar for like 30 minutes a day, or blocks of whatever, 15 minutes is the way to do it, because otherwise you will just get, it's too much.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I tend to go on LinkedIn maybe in the morning around lunchtime, and then before I knock off for the day, and just like do that. So we've got a question from Deborah. Have you ever looked at followers or connections to stop connecting once you knew who the audience finally were, or did you just leave it alone? Have you kind of knocked connections off once you've kind of got to know them a bit more?
Yeah, the odd person, like if someone was a bit of a, excuse my language, a bit of a dick, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If anything's ever happened that, if I've been triggered by someone or they've been like annoying or super salesy or whatever, I don't feel bad disconnecting. I think I did
No.
initially. You get to the point, especially as a business owner, you're like, I don't need this energy drain. And it's like you have to keep reminding yourself that you're in control of your LinkedIn
That's
network.
right, isn't it? It's your network, so it's for you to, like you said, shape it. And if there are people on it that are doing things that you find unappealing, or maybe they're posting things that are offensive or whatever it is, it's for you to decide whether you stay connected to them or not.
Yeah, and I unfollow a lot of people, and it's not necessarily personal because I think people are horrified. I follow less than 10% of my network
Mm-hmm.
because I just follow the people whose content interests me or the industries who interest
There you
me.
go.
So
Yeah.
I follow her now because she's in kind of the marketing space, and so am I. Whereas I don't follow the people I used to work with in shipping finance because I don't really it doesn't spark joy for me reading about oil containers or especially now with the price.
Really?
It's like really that doesn't do it for me. So I found the more like I Marie Kondo my home feed, the more I like LinkedIn. So even if I only have so many minutes a day, when I go in, I will always see something of interest that I can easily comment on and show
Yeah.
up. Whereas
Yeah.
before it was, a real random mix. If anyone's like on Twitter, you'll relate to this. Like if you don't set up Twitter lists, you just have this feed, which is just everything from Marks and Spencers to Game of Thrones to email
Mm-hmm.
marketing to whatever. And you're just like, oh, it's too much. So I think the more that you can unfollow and declutter your feed, the best. So I don't like a lot of people ask me, oh, should I disconnect to people from, previous job or industry? And it's very much a personal choice. I
Mm-hmm.
always think you never know who they know down the line. They already know you. You've built a relationship. So it seems a shame to kind of get rid of them because
Yeah.
you know how you can help each other in the future, or maybe they'll transition or you'll transition. So for me, it's a case of just mainly unfollowing.
Yeah.
I unfollow anything that is boring to me. And if it triggers me, it could be even someone in the same space and they keep posting and I'm feeling triggered. I'm like, no, I can't look at this.
Don't wanna. Yeah.
I know I haven't done X, Y, Z. So I just want it to be a happy place when I log on. And I think most people who don't think LinkedIn is a happy place, they haven't curated their feed.
Okay. Yeah. So I do that. I have been going through and unfollowing people, and the thing I liked about LinkedIn maybe about 2.5 years ago was more people started posting more educational things. And now it's just turned into a free for all for like whatever you can think of.
Yeah.
So where that doesn't interest me, I'm just starting to unfollow people. And particularly if they're people who like consistently like those types of posts. I just don't need to see that in my feed. I come to LinkedIn to network, and I come to be educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's essential that you curate your feed, and you do that by making sure that you see the content that you want to see. So Louise says it's basically like a database.
Yeah.
They change over time, need to be updated. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
And I think I initially I thought of LinkedIn as an online Rolodex. It's
yeah,
just a way, instead of getting all the business cards, shoving them in a drawer, you see the people pop up when they post or they comment, and it's like, oh, that person, oh yeah, Ronaldo's email marketing, brilliant. Because otherwise, you'd only see them when you go to the certain events or when
yeah.
you take the cards out of the drawer. So yeah, at the basic level, if people just use LinkedIn as an online Rolodex, that's great because you've got them all there in one place. And even if you forget someone's name, if you remember like their first name and their location, you'll find them. So I love it, yeah, just for that.
And I think definitely like making sure that you quite, it's, you know, because I'm connected to, I started using LinkedIn, I think it was about 2004 when I got my first LinkedIn connection request. And I didn't really know what I was doing. So I'm connected to a lot of people that I worked with throughout the years in various companies. And I don't necessarily want to lose those connections. Like you said, you never know when you might be able to help them or they might be able to help you. Um, but I'm definitely more interested in having people in my feed that I can learn from as a business owner. So, in as much as um, other small business owners connect with me because they've heard me speak, because they want to learn from me, that's what
Yeah,
I want to do, and that's it's kind of, LinkedIn is one of the places on a daily basis that I want to go and learn something.
definitely. I
Um,
think the
so
content's good on there as well. If you find the right people, I know there is a lot of dross on there
yeah,
as well. And sadly, I think with the pandemic, a lot of people have panicked, you know, in terms of sales mode, or a lot of newbies have come on and just said,
mhm,
"Oh, LinkedIn's good for sales," and you're like, it is a, you know, it is a slow build, like any networking. If you're really lucky, you'll walk into a physical networking room, or you'll connect with someone on LinkedIn, and they'll go,
yeah,
I need email marketing. I need LinkedIn training. Let's chat. Doesn't happen all the time. So you have to nurture the relationship and have a conversation rather than that horrible spammy message that's
yeah,
going. I see so many people, they're doing it even in their connection request. They're actually selling in that, and you're like, oh my God. So it's even got one step like
yeah.
closer
And
to
do you, it's got to the point where, so I switched off the connect thing and follow on my profile. So you have to dig around to want to connect with me.
yeah,
Um, but it's got to the point where the requests that I get, even if they, and I hate when they don't put a message, but I can see from their job title and where they work that what they're going to do is that I'm going to say yes and they're going to spam me straight away. Those are, I feel no loss in setting those people free and letting them go and you know,
yeah,
go on and do your thing.
exactly.
Good luck to you.
Exactly, they won't even remember because they'll have just filtered and just banged it out to whoever fits the criteria, whether it's the job title, the industry, or the location. They will just be targeted, and like you say, especially if they're in any kind of sales. Like, I'm not slagging off all salespeople, but if they're on a sales
No,
team, you're pretty much waiting for the pitch.
yeah, and there's a, I mean, I'm not a natural salesperson. It's not something that I came into running my business with that skill, and I'm still learning how to do it.
Yeah,
Um, but you can, there's a way of selling, right? And there are people who do it really well because they listen to what you've got to say. They ask questions and they listen to those answers. And those are the people that I don't mind giving my time of day to because they're
yeah,
actually listening to my challenges and potentially going to help me by giving me a solution. But it's those spammy messages that are
yeah.
just like, no, that's not how you do it. If you want me to buy from you, you're going to have to work a little bit harder than that.
Yeah, and I think even I'm sure you relate as well as an introvert. Like, there's a new trend of people just wanted to share their link in this in the first message, like, let's hop on a call for 15 minutes. And you're kind of like, do you know what? It's a bit
That is
soon.
my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I don't know who you are. I don't know if I want to get on a Zoom with you for 15 minutes, which could end up being 30 minutes, and just a waste of my time and your time.
Yeah,
Oh, that's too soon, I believe. And it's like, I think a lot of people hear the term social selling and they're just like, you
I
know, they
focus on the selling bit.
yeah, and it does take time, like, and I've had people say to me, "How many messages before you?" And everyone's different, but in general, I would say on average, you're looking at 3 to 5 at least before you get somebody onto an email or a Zoom. You're not like, if you're very lucky, unless someone's referred you and they've said you need to chat to Manal, you need to get email, you know, email marketing through her. Very rare. You have to make some kind of effort. Otherwise, you are that person in the networking room firing the card
The,
at someone who's just
yeah,
like in your face, and it's just so unattractive. And I think, yeah, for introverts, like, ask me to hop on a Zoom is never going to be a good thing. Like, I'm happy to do it the other way round if I know you want to work with me, absolutely. But if it's just general, I'm like, that's my energy. It's like I'm not giving it to
And
you.
it's interesting, because I like there's a couple of times where a lady that I've known for a while, fairly local to me, has sent me an email saying, "Oh, I've got so and so in my network, and they really want to meet you. Can I introduce you?" And I never answer that email straight away because I have to work my way up to saying yes, because the introvert in me just wants to go, "No, I don't want to meet another person. I don't not another person. I don't want to." The thought of meeting a new person, and I'm just like, this is someone I don't know. I've got no idea who they
Yeah,
are. Like, what do they want from me?
yeah.
All of that. So it takes me a day or two to even build up to going back and saying to her, "Yes, can you introduce us?"
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think, yeah, that's interesting for if anybody's watching and even they're an extrovert, like we do network differently and it's all about the energy and what an extrovert will take for granted. An introvert will be the complete opposite screaming. And what
Good.
comes easy for an introvert, I actually think the introverts have the edge a lot on LinkedIn because we're way more comfortable pipping up in the comments because we don't have to physically meet you and we can just drop our comment and then run and like our little comment is the talking, whereas a lot of the extroverts, they're the ones who constantly want to get on the call with you, the zoom on you, and they're not so good at the the commenting or kind of bigging someone else up on the home feed. They don't tend to hang out there as much. They're kind of more trying to meet you in real life.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, I think introverts are happier to show up and network on the home feed because, well, it's a way for us to get our voice out there as well, which one of the reasons I love it. Whereas when I was in corporate, my whole team, I would say, they were all male, and I'd say most of them were extroverts, and they were all in sales. So I was in like a sales team, and so they were super in your face, and I was like the introvert in the corner, the nerdy office manager trying to kind of keep them all in check. And yeah, I had no voice in that team. And then when I
Yeah.
discovered LinkedIn first, it was like, oh my God, people are listening to me. I'm having conversations. I'm building my network with the right people, and it's working for me. So I love that you don't have to be the loudest in the room to actually make an impact on LinkedIn as an introvert. You can actually get your opinion out there and be louder than the extroverts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true. Definitely. Louise says that she avoids people who post for the sake of it. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. A few more meaningful posts.
yeah,
I think for me, like you have, for me, it's like if you're on LinkedIn, you kind of have to, and not everyone may agree with this, but you kind of have to tie it back to what you're doing. And I'll
yeah.
give you an example. I last week on Monday, it was Granny Square Day, and I've been crocheting for a year, and
Oh,
I'm making a blanket. I've made some granny squares. I'm making a blanket, and I put the picture on Instagram, and I put it on LinkedIn. But the photo was exactly the same, but what I wrote was completely different.
yeah,
And there's lots of people, lots of my clients, when I talk to them about letting your personality through, and as a small business owner, like letting people get to know you, they immediately think, oh my God, I've got to put my personal life out in the open. And no, you don't. You can have like little snippets and
yeah.
tie it back to what it is that you do.
Share what you're comfortable with. You don't need to like completely overshare. I think it's good to have a mix because if all your content is just about your business and it's always like super professional, it's hard for people to connect to you on a human level. So it's always
Yeah,
good to kind of show that human side again and again.
yeah,
But then again, if you did all human posts the whole time, people would
yeah.
forget what your business is. So it's all about having that balance so that you're constantly reminding them, this is what I do.
I know, I know, and to be fair, that's where introverts and extroverts differ, right? And it one isn't better than the other. It's just we have different ways of approaching things, and I feel like not I know because my husband's a bit more extroverted than I am. He's that social butterfly. He thrives on going out and in groups and stuff, and he loves that kind of all of that sort of stuff. And when we go out in a big group, I like I will need a few days afterwards just to get over it.
Recover.
Just to because there's been too much. And even if I go to particularly if I'm speaking at events, which
Yeah.
is why I find webinars and like this kind of stuff easy, because
Yeah.
there isn't a queue of people afterwards waiting to talk to me. Whereas in an in-person event, there's a queue of people afterwards. So I've had to get my energy up to do the presentation.
Yeah.
And then I have to talk to people
Yeah.
afterwards. So I normally come home and collapse.
No, I'm the same. I'm the exact same. Even if obviously worse in real life in person, but even with a webinar, because you put so much energy into it for the hour or so, I'd have to have a little lie down after and just decompress.
True,
Because
definitely.
it's like even connection requests coming through, or just
Yeah.
leave and kind of queue up for an hour or two. Because
My tip to you is schedule your webinar from 11 till 12 and then break for lunch, and then you've got like that's what I do. Deborah says she likes to get to know her connections by reading the content and engaging. So that's a really good way. And getting, like, it is all about getting to know people.
Yeah.
You probably have some opinions on LinkedIn groups because you've got quite a vibrant group.
I agree, Deborah. In general, like they used to be like super active years ago, and then they became, I think, so big. They became spammy, and then they kind of just died a death. And LinkedIn, they haven't really kept that up to date with the features. So you get a lot more functionality in the Facebook group than you do in a LinkedIn group. I still think there are a few good groups out there, but they're very far and few between, and they tend to be smaller groups, like local groups, or not the ones with a million people. And I know LinkedIn are making more changes to groups, but they're not super exciting. They're okay. Like for a group host, I know they're going to help to introduce members one by one, which is a good feature.
Yeah.
But what I wish they would do, and myself and other trainers have said to them, is allow us to stream live with StreamYard into a group.
Yeah.
Will be a game changer, rather than me telling my group check in on me, or this is a YouTube video I've made, which is defeats the point. So I think being allowed to stream into groups,
that would definitely
be a game changer. And then audio events have just come out. I know I've just got the feature. If I could host an audio event for just my group, rather than the introvert in me prefers to do it in the safe space of a group, I don't really want to do my first audio event to my whole home feed.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm doing a live next week. It's my first live in a while, and I'm actually doing it from my company page because I had a bit of an introvert wobble, and I thought, you know what, I'll try it from my company page. There's only 5 followers. It's not going to be from my main profile. And I'm sure a lot of introverts don't want to go live to everyone. They'd feel a lot more comfortable if it was just more focused. So I hope they bring this kind of thing in, Deborah. We can wait. But I think for me, the feeds are always, they're not the best part in a group. I would say just look at the people in the group, the members, especially if there's local groups near where you live. It's a great way for you to connect and build those relationships. So and if you belong to any like association, like a chamber of commerce or a BNI or Enterprise Nation, and you've got fellow members in the group, just reach out and connect with them, because you can meet great people in groups. The feeds might be a bit spammy, but definitely you've got something in common if you already belong to the same association or town. So I would say don't completely discount them, because I probably built, I'd say at this stage, about a quarter of my network through groups, through associations, networks, kind of groups that had a bit of sense. I'm even in groups on LinkedIn that are for HSPs and empaths, and just reached out to similar people, because I just realized at the end of last year I didn't really have any HSPs or empaths on my feed. It was all this kind of masculine bro energy, and I was like, I need to see some creatives and some sensitive stuff popping up on my feed, so I feel like it's more just more relaxing and more interesting for me.
Definitely, it has to be. Listen, we're out of time. People, I urge you to go and check out Jen's website. I've just put a link to it in the comments. She's got some free resources on there, but also do check out how you can work with her. I have worked with Jen before. She helped me polish my profile. So how it is today is much different to how I started when I worked with Jen. So I do recommend you go and check her out, and if you can, work with her. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be speaking to Danny McFarren, who is a brand expert, and we're going to be talking about what startups need to think about before they launch their luxury brand. So it's quite specific. So if you know anyone who's about to launch a luxury brand, get them to be on my Facebook page, on my YouTube channel at 2:00 in 2 weeks' time. But just leaves me to say thank you to Jen. Few comments, another great session. Another vote for Jen's resources and content. So lovely comments there. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I will be back in 2 weeks' time. Take care.
Thanks everyone.